Houston Station, we are ready for the event.
Can you make your dreams and desires become reality? Can you manifest?
Hi, I'm here and we have a wonderful guest today. I am just going to open up the comments to everybody. Hi, Bjorn, you are on. Nice to see you. I am joined by Wald Amberstone today, and I'm going to put him straight on and then we will do our intros afterwards. Thank you so much, Walt, for joining me. I am honored, grateful, and happy to see you. It's so nice that you're here.
It is a real pleasure, and it took a bit of doing, but we made it.
We did indeed. We have a few people on. It's lovely that you're here. Please put your name in the comments. Would be lovely to see who is on. If you do not know who Wald Amberstone is, I have your bio here, which I will read from. Walt is a lifelong student of tarot and the application of symbolism to the issues of real life. He writes and teaches continuously and shares with his, and I'll add the lovely wife, Ruth Ann, the duties and responsibilities of a director of the Tarot School in New York. My Walt's path and passion is the discovery of new territories of human nature to explore. I met you a few years ago now at Reader's Studio. And to everybody watching, Reader's Studio is probably the tarot conference that everybody knows. And obviously you and Ruth Ann, how many years have we been arranging the Reader's Studio now?
Well, we had our first conference in 2002. And in that conference, Ruth Ann and I got married.
Wow.
That was so much fun. It was so, the whole process was so amazing that we couldn't stand it. Everything after that was an anticlimax. So we needed to do something. We needed to keep it going. So we invented the Reader Studio format, which was different than the conferences we had seen in the past. We've attended a few, and it was a little different than that. And we decided we would do something a little simpler, which is very funny considering how complex it's gotten to be.
Yes.
But we decided we would do that, and from 2003 onwards, we have done it continuously since then.
I think when I was there must have been 250 people in the room at one time. And it was a huge, I think I started on the Thursday. There was Thursday, Friday, and the weekend as well. So it was a whole amount of tarot readers, but not just that, it was this spiritual community coming together.
It was.
And I find that obviously 2020 has brought us some challenges on everybody getting together. And I found it interesting that we spoke a few weeks ago, and almost the first thing that you said to me on the phone came back at me with a question. And the question was, do I believe that it's even possible to manifest in a year such as 2020? How can we give people hope of a better 2021? So I want to throw that question right back at you today and see what your beliefs are on that.
Here we are at this very moment as a result of our intention. This is a manifestation by itself, is it
True.
not?
Very true.
When you get up in the morning to do whatever you do when you get up and you do what you're going to do, and the day unfolds in front of you, and the things happen that you set in motion. If you don't set anything in motion, nothing's going to happen. Or at least nothing connected with you. You'll just be a leaf floating on the stream, and if it goes over a waterfall, too bad. But if you have some intent, if you know there's a waterfall coming, you can paddle the leaf and get to the shore before the disaster happens. If you want to go somewhere, you aim in that direction and you go there. If you don't do that, no matter what happens, it's not something you intended. It's not something you have anything in mind from before. Manifesting is an intention. You have something you want to accomplish. That's what and if you manage to make that happen, you call it manifestation. Is there anything in your life that does not happen as a result of your intending it to be so? How much of your life is intended and how much of it is accidental, would you say, in your life?
I actually don't know. I would say that I work very much on intention. So a large portion of my life is intention, and then anything that comes in as a surprise on that generally has something to do with that intention in the first place.
The intention is an evocation of what's inside. Everybody that I know that I would consider to be a colleague in one way or another, or a person who will become a colleague in due course, has set themselves a direction to move in. And if they get anywhere with it, it's because of that. It's because they intended to do it. And they set themselves on a road to make it happen. The actual working out of the details of that intent may be uncertain. You don't necessarily know where you're going to end up as a result of traveling that road. But if you don't set yourself on the road, you're not getting anywhere.
That was very similar to what happened with Reader's Studio and myself, because I set the intention that I would somehow be at Reader's Studio and that I would teach at Reader's Studio. I didn't know how I would make that happen, but I put in a workshop anyway. And then thought, well, I'm in Germany. Somehow I have to manifest that I am going to go to Reader's Studio. So the first step on my intention was actually sending a workshop in when the opening was.
That's right.
And then I figured it out.
You manifested a workshop by starting the process
Mm-hmm.
with the intention that it come to pass. You
That's
couldn't guarantee that it would come to pass, but you could certainly guarantee that it wouldn't.
This is very true.
So
Indeed.
my feeling about magic for myself is that I've been a magician all my life. And I've got pretty much exactly what I had in mind to get, with a few exceptions. The interesting thing is that there is the intention of around you. The world has its own intentions. And you're in the middle of a maelstrom of activity. And everybody's going in their own direction to do their own thing in their own way. And sometimes it's adversarial. And sometimes the world has its own issues. Like this whole COVID thing, people don't intend to die, but they do.
Yeah.
They don't intend to get sick, but they get sick anyway. So the world has its kind of gives you the material to work with. And then the question is, what do you do with it?
That's very true, because especially with conferences this year being cancelled and the hand of the universe took that away from a lot of us, the actual ability to continue with our normal life or normal intentions. And do you see that personally as a pause in an intention when something from the universe comes in, or is it a swerve ball in a different direction? How would you consider that, for example, with Reader's Studio and what it brought to the table for you?
You mean as of this moment? I mean, given the conditions we're in now?
Yes.
The intention is to wait until it's ready. It seems to me that if you attempt something that is not intrinsically possible, it's very unlikely that it's going to happen no matter what you do. And considering that the amount of manifestation you get depends very largely on the amount of energy you put into it at the top. If you waste your energy, your manifestation is going to be truncated, if it even happens at all. If you just insist on hitting your head against a brick wall, you're likely to get for your efforts a bloody head.
That's very true.
So from my point of view, the first thing you have to do is decide whether or not you think a thing is possible at all. The second thing you'd have to do is decide whether you think it's possible for you. If you don't think one of those two things, if either of those two things is missing, even if you're wrong about it, if that's what you think, your chances of getting what you want are pretty remote. It has to be possible, and it has to be possible for you in your own mind.
That's a very good point, that once you set your intention, that you have to really be in a mindset that will pull off, even when it doesn't. Like you say, sometimes we feel like it isn't possible. We have moments, everybody has moments, and there will be dips in the path of, can I really manifest this? But I guess that we have to take that, and then the majority of the time, is it possible to stay in that it will happen for me mindsets always? Or as humans, are we, I don't know, a little bit prone to seeing the negative as well?
Think of all the people in the world who at one time or another, or maybe in general, feel helpless. It's a very sad condition to be in. One of the things that characterizes magic and people who work with it is that they never feel helpless. There's always something they can do.
That's true.
So the feeling of helplessness is the exact opposite of the ability to manifest. If you're caught in a situation where the world presents you with problems that you literally cannot do anything about, they're simply beyond your ability to handle, and you know that, you just sit back and let the stream carry you where it will, because you have no agency. A magician always has agency. Even when
That's
you have to wait for results, even when you know the time is not right now, you wait until the time is right, knowing that it will be eventually, and then you're ready to move. And that knowledge that when the time is right and when you're right, everything will come together to make happen what you have in mind to happen, is probably the very first condition for which, that makes manifestation possible. I don't know, most people, I think, when they imagine to themselves what magic is about and manifestation is about, think in terms of magic wands and rituals and gestures and spells and words and things like that. But behind all of those things is the intention to make something happen. If there is no, those words, those gestures, those rituals will have no effect.
That's very true. And how do you find that your views on manifestation have changed over the years? Have they indeed changed, or has it always stayed with the core of the intention set and the mindset to follow it?
When I was little, when I was 5 or 6 years old, I used to read fairy tales a lot. And then I graduated to King Arthur and Robin Hood and those characters. A combination of heroes and magicians. That was my reading material, and I took it very seriously. And I used to get my friends together and tell them that I knew where the doorway was to the magic treasure. And being kids, they had these two responses. On the one hand, there was a willingness and delight in believing it, and on the other hand, it was natural skepticism. Oh, you're full of shit. So, but they would come with me anyway. They couldn't take a chance that I was right. They had to make sure that they weren't missing out. So they would come where I took them, and then I would make up some excuse why it wasn't appropriate to open the door.
That's brilliant.
And I did that when I was little. And the older I got, the more I gave that up. I forgot about that in the movements of everyday life, making sure that I had what I wanted and did what I wanted to do, not realizing that it was a magical practice. But I got married by choosing the woman I wanted to marry. I did the work that I wanted to do by choosing the work that I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very little in my life was done without the sense that I was choosing it and making it happen. Although I didn't think of it at the time as magic.
I understand that.
And as I got older and got involved with tarot on a more professional basis, the whole issue of magical practice became more available to me, more evident to me. And then what was unconscious became conscious, and what was unintentional became intentional.
Yeah.
And I had a name for it, and I called it magic, and in some cases, sorcery. And sorcery and magic are a little different from each other. So now, sort of coming to the stage where I don't even know if I'm going to have a brain in my head in a few years, I had to prepare for that. And so the preparation is underway. So when the time comes, I will hopefully find myself in a reasonably good condition. And if I have to die, then I'll die comfortably, not in some horrible way.
That's a huge life concept to actually think about. I was very similar to you. I grew up on Enid Blyton books and very much in the imagination and wishing chairs and trees where you could go into different realms. And I took that with me along the way. I'm 45 now, and I've been teaching also psychic development, for example. And I've found that when I'm explaining things to students, that I'm using very similar terms to what I did as a child. So very visualization, you know, the simple things that got me on my path, I'm now using those things and revisiting. And I think that the imagination is really important when it comes to the manifestation and intent, because I personally believe that you need to have that glisten in your eye, the love of magic, or the interest, or not have lost that from childhood, that natural really wanting to find that magic door. And I think a lot.
You can't imagine it. You're not going to happen.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people lose that along the way, the actual magnificence of possibilities with magic and life. And like you say, the daily, getting into your daily routine sometimes just takes that out of you as an adult, because you just get through the day and keep going. But I really agree with you on that. I can't say where I'll be in 10 years or in 20 years, because I do feel like I've changed a lot along the way. I've changed my mindset as I've grown older, changed the slight things that I believe in. But you mentioned tarot as well, and tarot as a tool for manifestation. You obviously you've been working with tarot for a number of years, we'll put it that way. And would you use the tarot itself or a system or any other system read to manifest with, to set an intention with?
I use tarot primarily to know. My passion is to know. That's what I want to do. And because the world is such an amazing place, I've discovered after all of these years that I know practically nothing. Just really close to nothing. Amazing. 14, I knew a lot more than I do now.
No, don't say that.
That's what I thought anyway. I was convinced that whatever I thought was true.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, whatever anybody else thought was nonsense. So I had a built-in arrogance that protected me from real possibilities. As I've gotten older, the arrogance has gotten less, although I find it amusing at this point. and so now, I use tarot to tell me how the universe is organized, how a human, as far as I'm concerned, tarot is basically the form of a human being. Tarot is intended to recreate the internal, spiritual, and invisible form of a human being. And it describes the world that is a human world. And because that is a very big piece of understanding, I use it constantly to understand that. And that gives me my sense of possibility. When I ask the question, what is possible, the more I know about myself and the more I know about the world around me, the more things are possible. Things are possible for me that I would not have guessed. So that's what I use tarot for. I don't use tarot for ritual. In fact, I don't do any rituals at all. My stuff does not involve ritual.
No, I don't use rituals either. I also use the system tools as a base for understanding the future, obviously, but also understanding a situation or where I am, and then navigating from it.
Do you have sometimes a sense that what you want can be done, but it isn't going to happen now?
Yes.
When you use ritual, you do it when you want to do it, and you think maybe the ritual is going to make it happen. It's the ritual that's going to do it. It's the objective universe that is being used in a certain way, just like you would use any tool. You take a hammer to a nail, and you expect the nail to go into the wood. It's a tool, and it has a known use and a known effect. And if you wave a magic wand around and say the necessary words, you can bring down angels and demons to do your bidding. You can make, all sorts of things happen because it's a tool. And from that point of view, magic becomes just as objective as any other physical activity. You do this, and then that happens. It's cause and effect. From my point of view, that's not what happens at all. I don't think in terms of cause and effect. I think that I will start this process here, put my foot on the road, follow it where it takes me, and then whatever happens, happens. But if I aim myself at the ocean, and the ocean is a big place, and I set my foot on that path, and I walk on it far enough, eventually, one way or another, I'm going to come to the ocean.
Very true.
But if I set myself to the desert, hoping to find the ocean, it ain't going to happen.
No, that's very true. It may have been Michelle Welsh that I spoke with it on the other day. We were talking about manifestation and then sudden left swerves come in, or almost like a tidal wave in what actually feels like a different direction, but it's only a different direction because we had our head focused on one particular outcome. And so then when you manifest for a wider, like you say, a less honed down specific situation, the wider it is, the more the universe shows itself, or the more possibilities are there if we are personally open to them.
Things in the world have possibilities built into them, which are not necessarily visible at any given moment. The trick is to find what is possible and to be aware when a thing is or is not possible, because sometimes a thing will be possible this morning that will no longer be possible this afternoon. So you have to know your time.
Wow.
That requires a certain sensitivity. Being aware of what is possible in any given moment is at least half the battle. Sometimes the door is open and you can walk through. Sometimes the door is closed and sometimes it's locked.
So do you believe then that in that case, that if you are wanting to manifest something, let's say on the business realms, for example, if you're wanting to manifest something specific on a business realm, that it may not be possible at some times, but then it is at another, and you have to find the right time to manifest? Or do you manifest and then let the right time happen?
As far as I'm concerned, if I were in business, well, of course I'm in business in a way, but if I were,
you definitely are in business.
but my intent with my business is not to make money.
Okay.
I need a certain amount of it, so I make sure that I have that amount. But my issue is not money. My business is not about money. So I don't make much. If you want a lot of money, you have to devote yourself to money. If you want a lot of power, you have to devote yourself to power.
Yeah.
Whatever it is that you're looking for, if you want a lot of it, you have to devote yourself to it, and then other things become impossible. There's a certain amount of energy that you have available to you, and if you devote all of that energy or the majority of that energy to the attainment of a particular goal, the chances of you getting that goal are pretty good. Even if you have to suffer a bit, even if it takes you 20 years or 30 years to do it, you will eventually get there if you persist. But in that persistence, you'll pretty much preclude anything else happening. So sometimes when you choose a path and you devote yourself to it, you lose the opportunities that lie in other directions.
How do you make those choices then as a human? So we are in our human existence and maybe not so tapped into what the possibilities are for our own personal amazingness in life. We may, whether it be erroneously or correctly, think that we need to focus on a specific amount of money, for example, to come in, or we want to focus on love and grow that side of our life. How do we know as humans that that's the choice that we should be making in our manifestations?
That comes under the heading of self-knowledge. To know yourself is the very first thing. As far as I can tell, and I think most people who are involved in the magical world in a professional way would agree that the thing that a magician works with is himself. That's where the magic happens. It happens inside the magician, not out in the world. The outer world only manifests, the manifestation that happens is a consequence of what happens inside the magician. So the first thing is self-knowledge. If you don't know yourself or you don't understand yourself, you're going to get all bollocks up. It's as though you took a child and put him in front of a mainframe computer and let him push buttons. What would happen?
Yeah.
All sorts of nasty things would happen.
Yeah.
If you don't know what you're doing and you're in the middle of a very complex universe, pushing buttons to make things happen without the knowledge to make it work, manifesting is only going to make trouble, not give you good stuff.
There's such big concepts. I was speaking about knowing yourself on a live the other day, and somebody said, "But that takes your whole life to know yourself."
But you know what? There are people who are, let's say, extremely rich, or people who gain extraordinary quantities of power, who don't know themselves hardly at all, except in that one area, perhaps, and yet they make it happen. It is
Yeah.
possible to harness your energy to one particular goal, and just that alone will make things happen. The only problem is it may not be what you want. You may get what you want and be totally unhappy.
So how do we know then? How do we find ourselves to actually find that place in which we can manifest and know that that's something that's best for us? Or does it suffice to set a wide goal, like I say, love, and then work on that aspect of your life?
If you're lucky enough to be aware that self-knowledge is useful, and maybe even ultimately important, you'll set yourself on that path. That becomes a path by itself.
True.
And then, coming from that, all kinds of things happen. Self-knowledge is a matrix. It's like like soil in which you can plant any number of seeds. If you don't have fertile soil, or if you have too little of it, no matter what you plant, it's going to come out stunted.
That's very true.
That's my feeling. I don't know. I mean, it's been my experience that anything that anybody says, somebody else can say the opposite and they wouldn't be wrong.
That's very true. But there is I completely agree with you, because when I sit down and with my students, I'm terrible for saying you need to work on yourself. That's where you start, and it's also very hard to explain how to start working on yourself because it's such a personal journey for everybody.
Yes.
And we have then people coming, if I do readings, for example, and they want a particular route in life, and then you lay the cards and it's probably not the best route for them to take, or something completely different is shown as a route forward. And how do you actually tell somebody who's there and they really want a specific direction in their life that they have to look inwards?
Well, they don't. Not necessary. You don't have to do anything. So the thing is, let's say somebody comes to you and they say they want something in the areas of health, love, and money, which seem to be the basics of all kinds of divination everywhere at all times. You can show them how to approach those things. They don't have to know themselves. They can go do it.
That's right.
You can use cards. You can use the balls. You can use palm reading, whatever it is, and you can get somewhere with that. You can see how the world works and maybe take advantage of it. You might be able to be warned that doing something might have a deleterious effect instead of a helpful one. How many kings and emperors have consulted their astrologer before going to war?
Very true.
They take it. They don't have to know themselves at all. All they have to
Yeah.
do is hire a good astrologer who will tell them what to do. And then they just do that. And if they're lucky, the astrologer will be on target. And if not, too bad.
The astrologer's gone by then.
Everybody is in a situation of you win some and you lose some. So one of the things that I find amusing is students want to know what they can do to be accurate, how they can be always accurate in a reading. And my answer is you can't be. You'll be accurate up to a point. But I say to them, by what standard are you required to be accurate all the time? Does a lawyer win every case? Does a doctor save every patient? Do you know any professional of any kind who wins every battle that they start? Nobody does. Why should we be held to a higher standard than that?
It's a very good way of looking at it.
If you do it most of the time, if you're pretty good at it, that's good enough. Better than nothing at all.
And you do your best.
Yeah. Have you ever gone to a doctor with a pain of some sort and the doctor looks at you and pokes around and does a few tests and says, well, you know what? I don't really know what's going on here, but if you take these pills, you'll feel better.
Yeah, that's true. That's frighteningly true.
But every once in a while, you have a problem that a doctor can't solve. And then her expertise is very useful. So from my point of view, magic is simply the consequence of a certain way of living, rather than a set of particular actions or tools.
There's one question that I always wanted to ask you, and that was the question on consciousness and whether we are interconnected in consciousness in your beliefs, and whether that then has an effect on manifestations.
That is such a metaphysical question. And of course, I have my own sense of that, which I can tell you. Not that it's going to help anybody else, but anyway, it's my feeling that if there is, and there probably is, some kind of original energy in which the whole world comes into being, you can call it God or you can call it anything you like. People have different names for that. But out of that energy comes a set of principles and laws. The universe works in a certain way. And inside of that universe, there are things that do what they want to do. At the very end of the process, from my point of view, the whole point and purpose of a divinity is to create beings who are free to do what they want. So if you had to follow the law, if you had no choice, if you were constrained to follow the law, and everything were lawful, and everything was good, and everything worked, and we were all happy together, and everybody wore a big smile, and everybody wore a nice white robe and carried a light, there wouldn't be much point. God could have saved himself the trouble. if everybody were good, if everybody were appropriate, if everybody followed the law. So from my perspective, the ultimate gift that divinity gives to the world is the ability to do what you want, which is what he does. It's basically giving you a divine attribute, the one last final divine attribute, which is to be free. So you can do whatever you damn well please, and you'll just have to bear the consequences, that's all.
So the magic that we create personally in our personal manifestation is for a personal manifestation, and it may intertwine with others just from their manifestation process.
People are not alone in the world. What other people do have an influence on you, and what you do has an influence on them. So I would say probably you have to pay very, very careful attention to what the people around you need and want. Give it to them if you can. I think probably the first principle is one that I heard that is a principle in medicine. First, do no harm. Whatever magic you want to do, whatever process you want to take, the consequences of what you do will be felt by people around you. Be aware of them. It's absolutely essential. Otherwise, you'll bear the burden of a horrible guilt and a horrible kind of karma if you do the things that hurt other people to help yourself, or to help to do what you think is going to help yourself in pursuit of what you want. If you're willing to hurt other people to get it, you're going to create a set of consequences that you're not going to like. There is one of the things that is part of my understanding of tarot. The four suits in tarot divide the world up into categories of four. And it's amazing how many different ways there are for four to come into the consciousness. And manipulating those four things, those four suits in their various ways, is one of the forms of tarot magic. So one of the things I've discovered is that each of the suits brings into the world a certain kind of ability. For example, the suit of wands gives you purpose. The suit of cups gives you meaning. The suit of swords gives you reason. And the suit of pentacles gives you value. What would happen, do you think, if you found yourself in life without a purpose? Or what if life didn't have either a purpose or a meaning? How would you feel? What would you do? How would you deal with yourself? How many of those four do you need in order to stay alive? If you didn't have any of them, you'd kill yourself.
Very true.
Then there comes a point of this issue of doing harm to other people. It seems to me that most of the ills of the world come from the way people treat each other.
Yeah.
And the ways in which you can associate the suits with that is the combination of what you the intensity with which you pursue one of the following things: wealth, power, privilege, and dominion. And each one of those things can be associated with a suit, obviously. Wealth with pentacles, power with wands, privilege with cups, and dominion with swords. And each one of those things, if you pursue it far enough, hard enough, and with no concern for other people, will produce all the different things that create the hierarchies of wealth and poverty, the poor and the rich, the powerful and the weak, all of the things that make for trouble, all of the ways in which we hurt each other are handled in that way. So you can look at those four suits and see the ways in which you can avoid things as well as the ways in which you can accomplish good things. But everything has to be done in the context of the people you live among.
That's so much information for tarot readers, actually, just in that few minutes. Do you teach that at the tarot school?
I have taught it to a few people. The thing about the tarot school is that it's got its own little group of followers, people who enjoy the kinds of things that I do.
The thing I love, and I know you have a new course on it as well, is the birth cards.
Oh, yeah.
And until I came to Reader Studio, I was oblivious of my birth card. It had eluded me all the many years.
Yeah.
But I think that's also a form of self-awareness, like you say, and working on yourself is the course that you have on the birth card.
Yes, absolutely. It's the energy you came into this world with. Are you of the belief that everything is genetic? That you are who you are because of your genetics, along with whatever effect the world has on you after you're born? Do you come in with a determined set of abilities and possibilities?
I don't know. I don't know if I would put it solely down to genetics.
Genetic, well, the idea of nature and nurture.
Mhm.
Do you think that there is something that you came into the world with which is purely yours and no one else's?
I guess so.
You know yourself well enough to know that you're not
Yeah.
just there's some other, that not nobody else in the world is you.
True.
You're not just a set of demographics.
No.
And that's what birth cards are about. The thing that initially, at the very beginning of everything, is what you come into the world with. That's only you. Even though there are only 12 signs, 12, like there are 12 signs in astrology, there are 12 birth card sets. But in each one of those sets allows you to tell your own story within it. And that story, which is you, is repeated by no one else. And if you come to know that story, you'll know what you can do, and what you should do, and what you shouldn't do.
The year cards, then, on top of that, could you use your year card as a guiding direction to help with intention for the year?
Well, I'll tell you, that particular approach to birth cards is one that I don't know very well. I'm aware that it exists, and I know that people have been using it. So I would say, just by the nature of things, yes, of course you can use it if you know how. It's another piece of magic.
Yeah.
But I don't know very much about that, so I couldn't tell you from personal.
The birth cards course, I'll put a link to in the bottom of the video as well, if anybody wants to do that. It was only released this year, wasn't it? In March time, I think.
Yeah, the birth card course was released in June. We did it in
Okay.
June, or was it May? I can't remember.
When did you
Well, the birth card course was we picked May. Was it May 11th?
yeah.
We actually released the word of it that it was available
Midnight.
Okay.
in May of this year, but it took 6 years to produce.
Wow.
Got so much information in it that I've forgotten it myself.
Well, we'll put links in so that everybody can have a look in there for that. I like the self-discovery. I work a lot on myself. I work on myself daily, actually. I'm human at times and don't always manage to keep on top of me, but I do try very hard. And I think the birth cards is actually something where I get so many people coming to me and say, I don't know who I am, or I don't know where I am in life, or I don't know what I'm doing. And I think the birth cards and the birth cards course is something that people can actually find themselves with and bounce from.
They can begin to.
Yeah.
What we do with tarot, excuse me, is to create ways in which to create, what would you call them, categories or contexts within which you can measure yourself. If you don't have a context, you can't measure anything. How big is an inch in the middle of infinity? If there's no boundaries, you can't measure. So what we do is work with different kinds of contexts in which, layer by layer, you get more and more specific about who and what you are and what you can do. Birth cards are the beginning of that, but just the beginning.
Which is somewhere that even if you don't feel that you're at the beginning of finding yourself, that you can go to grow from again on your path.
Say that again. I wasn't sure I understood.
if you are already on a self-finding journey and you feel like you have come a certain amount of way along the way, the birth cards can actually form a revisit or a I don't know, I can't think of the right term, but something that then boosts you again on your spiritual journey because you're delving again into yourself. So it's not, what I'm saying is it's not just for somebody who's starting their self-finding journey. It's also for people who are already on their journey but actually want a different dimension to it or a different way of looking at it.
Absolutely. Because one of the things about this is it is a tarot technique. So it helps to have a tarot background to use it.
Yes.
However, a person who knows the material can help with a person who knows nothing about tarot begin that journey of self-knowledge. So, for example, it's perfectly reasonable and a good idea to find a person's birth cards and set them out at the top of your reading, whatever spread you're doing, whatever reading, whatever question is involved. If you know a person's birth cards to begin with, you know how to approach them.
And I know the amazing Carrie Paris does that with her reads as well. She's very, she does the birth cards, I think, on every read. Yeah, as a foundation.
It's a very good place to start.
Yeah. And we are lucky that you are joining us on this next weekend already on the 5th and 6th of December at the Manifestation Conference. What can we look forward to?
Well, for one thing, we've covered a lot of material here already, but I'll amplify on it. I'll try to make it systematic instead of, questions as they come up. We're going to be talking about intent as the foundation of manifestation. And we'll see the way intent manifests itself inside of the cards. I will work with a few cards to show you the kinds of intent that are possible and that you can use the cards to choose a direction that will make your whole life different.
I think we all need that this year.
Next year will just bring what next year brings. And
yes.
The trick is to be flexible. One of the things that a teacher of mine once told me was, if you're not flexible, the world will break you like a stick.
It's very true. There is a certain amount of flow required in life. And especially when those curveballs come in, that we have to be slightly flexible in order to ride the wave.
Do you know that even being here right now is a result of Ruth Ann's particular flexibility? I was so uncertain about what I was supposed to be doing in this little interview we're doing here. I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know where to start. I was irritable. I was tired. I was, all those things. And I said, you know what? I'm going to do this. One way or another, I'm going to do this. But if Ruth Ann hadn't been here, it wouldn't have happened. So,
well, I had a similar thing before when I was ready to throw everything out of the window 5 minutes before we started.
Yeah.
But we got here and we managed it.
We did. Thank you so much, Toni.
Thank you so much for being here. And thank you so much to Ruth Ann as well. I know you're there. It's lovely to have you both here. And we will see you on the weekend of the 5th and the 6th. And I'm really, really looking forward to it. And I'll put all your links in below so everybody can have a look. And we'll see each other next weekend.
Take care, sweetie.
And bye, everybody. I am ending the broadcast. Thank you so much.